Tribe, Book 2, Todd Mills Mystery. Author, R.D. Zimmerman. Publisher, Scrib Pub, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Narrator, Eric Aust. Chapter 33. Todd had been sitting on the living room couch for over 10 minutes when he heard her key in the rear door. He didn't move, just sat there in his beige down parka and listened as Janice stomped her feet and took off her coat in the kitchen. "And where were you?" he finally called. "Todd, is that you?" she responded, unable to hide her surprise. "No, it's just your friendly neighborhood thug come back for another violent assault." "You scared me." She appeared at the edge of the living room. "How did you get in?" "You left the back door open? You must have been going somewhere in a hurry." "Huh?" "I checked and saw that your car was gone, and don't tell me you just went to the post office." "I didn't." She came in, crossing through the large room and dropping herself in an overstuffed armchair alongside the couch. Actually, my dear, Zeb called." Little could have surprised him more, and Todd sat up and demanded, "What? Where is he?" "He phoned from a gas station." "I can't believe it." "I went and picked him up." "So where is he, outside?" "No, I took him somewhere." "Such as?" "Somewhere safe." "Janice," said Todd, clasping his hands and his voice growing tense, "don't hold out on me. We need to start being real frank with each other. This kid's in serious trouble." "No, he's in serious danger." "That too, but you haven't heard. Rawlings just called me on my car phone. Some guy was attacked. It just happened a couple of hours ago, and they have a warrant out for Zeb's arrest." "Oh no." She put both her hands to her face. "Not the minister." "How the hell did you know that?" "Zeb told me." "So he did it." "No, of course not." Janice took a deep breath. "Zeb's car got stuck in the snow last night, and this minister took Zeb and Ripka in for the night." Todd had been holding on to the hope, however small, that the police were somehow mistaken, but quite obviously they weren't. Todd shook his head, unzipped his coat, wondered how much worse it could get. "First some religious kooks are after Zeb, and now the police," Todd said. "What else did he tell you?" "Like who went after this guy, this minister?" "Maybe." Todd sat there in disbelief as Janice recounted the entire sequence of events, from getting the phone call to picking up Zeb, to Zeb's story of what had happened at the minister's house. Piecing it all together, Todd was relieved that it made sense, particularly since Todd had come face to face with this guy, this Paul. "So what do you think?" asked Todd. "Do you believe Zeb? Do you trust him?" "Implicitly." He sat back, glanced around the large room with its tall ceiling, then gazed out at the sunny, white day. He didn't even know Zeb barely knew what he looked like. "Call me nuts, but I guess I trust him too." The next moment, Todd eyed her and asked rather lightly, "See anyone else today?" Actually, yes." Janice stared down at the floor as if in shame. "I saw Pat. Pat from Northwestern. He's here in town, and I met him just a little while ago. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner, Todd, but I was trying to keep it as simple as possible." "So what happened?" "I ended up telling him to go to hell." He couldn't help but grin. That was just like Janice, always moral, always almost always forthright. Relieved that she had told him, and that finally perhaps everything else was being laid out, he knew he had to tell her too. Todd said, "I saw him too." "What?" "When I stopped by my place, he was waiting for me in the lobby." "You're kidding." "What did he say to you?" "Among other things, that he had a son, namely, specifically, Zeb." Completely silent, Janice bowed her head and lifted her right hand to her eyes. She looked as if she were about to say something, but instead she just sat there completely silent. "Well," asked Todd, "is it true?" Janice shrugged. "So he's possible dad number 2. She nodded. "Any other candidates?" She shook her head. He said, "That's kind of what I assumed. And that's kind of why I didn't tell you. I didn't know how," she finally said. "What happened between Pat and me, well, it wasn't pretty. I can say that much. We were..." "Later," said Todd, standing and walking toward her. "I don't need the gory details, but if you want to tell me later." Are we still friends?" The best. That is, if you can forgive me and my temper. Well, it is something you need to work on. Janice pushed herself up from the overstuffed chair, and Todd wrapped his arms around her thin body, holding her tightly against himself. Outside of his small family, his mother and brother, who both lived in distant states, he shared more history with Janice than any other person in the world. They'd gone from youthful love and lust to avoidance and distance, then all the way back to a profound kind of respect and love, a familial kind that could never be broken. As he held her in his arms, his face nuzzled in her thick hair, her face pressed against his chest, Todd couldn't help but wonder if the thing that had always been binding them wasn't cosmic destiny, but simply and actually a child. Janice asked, "So you want to know where Zeb is?" "That's kind of a loaded question. We're not only legally obligated to contact the police with any information we have, but I'm dating a cop. I promised I'd give Rollins a call as soon as we spoke." They broke apart. There just wasn't any easy way of doing this, thought Todd as he drifted into the center of the room. Glancing at Janice, he not only saw the worry on her face, but knew she was contemplating all the legal ramifications as well. She said, "Todd, don't you see how easily this could get out of control? My God, it had scared Zeb to death. If he thought he was wanted by the cops, and what if Rollins can't control all this? What if the police descend upon Zeb and haul him down to the police station for questioning? You of all people know how terrifying that is. What if they want to hold him overnight? Not only would he be separated from Ripka, I might not be able to take her." I hadn't thought about that. But she was right. The authorities could easily insist on placing Ripka in a foster home, which would shatter the already spooked Zeb. "Todd, you and I both know that Zeb didn't try to kill anyone, so how can we protect him as much as possible?" Todd thought for a moment. "Okay, let's do it this way. Let me call Rollins down at the police station. I won't tell him anything, not over the phone anyway. I'll just get together with him and then bring him to talk to Zeb. No one else involved. Zeb's going to have to talk with the police sooner or later, so it might as well be sooner, and it might as well be Rollins." "I don't think we have any other choice." She rolled her eyes. "I guess that makes me not only Zeb's birth mother, but his birth lawyer too. So dispense with the secrecy. Where's Zeb?" "Down at the Gay Times." "Oh, great. So much for maternal instincts. Sending your son and granddaughter down to a gay bar." "Listen to yourself, Todd. You sound like Rush Limbaugh." "Gee, thanks." They discussed the logistics and decided upon a reasonable plan, which Todd hoped to God made sense. Janice then gave him Jeff's dressing room phone number and dashed to the upstairs bathroom. "Just call and check on Zeb, will you?" she asked as she hurried out of the room. Of course he would, replied Todd as he sat down on the living room couch and picked up the phone. He dialed the number, and a deep voice answered on the first ring. "Miss Crystal's dressing room." "Hi, Jeff. It's me, Todd." "Well, hello, my darling. Mr. Manly Man, what a wonderful treat to hear your suave voice. Do you miss me, or are you just calling for a fashion tip?" "On a bright, wintry day like today, I recommend blazing blues to go with your brilliant eyes." "Thanks, Jeff," began Todd, "but Janice just wanted me to see how everything is. Just fabulous. You can tell that dykehin that we arrived at the Gay Times a few minutes ago, and I'm doing my makeup. Brilliant red lipstick, some nice rouge, and great eyeshadow. A Numi evening blue. My rehearsal starts in 15 minutes. I think she's more concerned about Zeb and Ripka. Well, you tell her that I think she should spend as much time worrying about her cosmetics as she does about them. Father and daughter are wonderful, though, not to worry. In fact, they're right here dozing." "Great." Todd wondered how much to tell him and decided the less the better. "If Zeb wakes up, you can tell him that Janice is on the way down." "Oh, fab. I have an audience. Ta-ta!" Todd had hung up. When his hand still on the receiver, the phone rang again. Although he wondered if he should, he impulsively answered it halfway through the first ring. "Hello," he said. "Yes, Janice Gray, please." "Who's calling?" "This is Denise from her office downtown." Great, thought Todd. That was all they needed, a call regarding some court case or divorce settlement or whatever. He could easily imagine her getting tied up on the phone over some petty issue. Listen, said Todd, we're on the way out. Can Janice call you back on my car phone in just a few minutes? Of course. I just make sure she calls. It's urgent. Right. He hung up, and by the time he had his coat on, she was on her way down the stairs. I thought I heard the phone, she said. Was it a hang-up? No, I answered it. It was Denise from your office calling on some business. Janice rolled her eyes. Being a lawyer is just so much fun. I can't stand it. I told her you'd call her back on my car phone. We should get going. I'll call Rollins from the car, too. That way I can keep the conversation short and not explain much. Janice went to the front hall, where she put on her coat and boots again. Just as they were about to leave, Todd eyed the control panel of her security system. This time, he said, I think it would not only be advisable to lock the doors, but also set the alarm. Giving him a snide look, she said, You sound like my father. Janice went up to the panel, a small plastic box with a keypad in the center, and punched in her security code. Immediately, however, the system started squawking, and a digitized voice began barking. Warning system error. Phone lines not accessible. Warning system error. God, I'm sick of the way that thing yaks at me, muttered Janice. She re-entered the code, but the same thing happened again. The system sounded the same warning. What's that mean? Asked Todd. Beats me. I've never done that before. When did you last set the alarm? I don't know. Have you set it since that guy broke in? No. Janice paused and thought. No, I guess not. You guys were here last night and I didn't set it earlier today. Todd rubbed his forehead and tried to recall what little he knew about these things. Last summer, when he was still at Channel 7, he'd done a special report on security systems and how they operated. He not only talked about the different types, from the standard models to the newer wireless ones, he'd also pointed out what the consumer needed to look for in a good system. Don't these things usually have a main panel or central box? He asked. Sure, it's downstairs in the laundry room. Exactly where that guy had broken in the other night. Had he tampered with anything? Maybe I'm being paranoid, but let's check it out, said Todd. From the front hall, Janice led the way through the kitchen and down the basement stairs. Todd followed her as she flicked on a light, continued past a small storage room, and then entered the laundry room, a large space with a pile of dirty clothes mounting beneath the spout of the laundry chute. The first thing Todd did was check the window, which looked just as he'd left it, still covered with plastic and nailed board. The main panel's right here, said Janice. A gray metal box fastened to the wall. It looked like a fuse box, except that it was locked. Several wires came out of the top and were connected with another that led to the outer wall of the house. Is that your phone line? Todd asked. It looks like it, doesn't it? Janice's eyes followed the wire to the wall. Well, that's it. I think the phone box is just outside on the side of the house. Janice reached up to a ledge, felt around, and then pulled down a hidden key, which she used to open the panel. Inside were a variety of wires and connections, all of which looked reasonably confusing, yet orderly. Todd studied the mass of electronics, but couldn't make sense of any of it. Well, said Todd, at least it doesn't look like anyone's pried open the box and tampered with anything. Let's try it again. Janice led the way out, turning off the lights as they went upstairs. They returned through the kitchen into the front hall, and when Janice punched in the security code a third time, it worked. The digitized voice said, System alarmed, armed, level 3. That's weird, commented Todd. Yeah, well, the electronics world baffles me, replied Janice. Come on, we've got 30 seconds to get out the door before the alarm system is activated. But it was more than weird, thought Todd, as they hustled out the door. Something was striking him as wrong, yet he couldn't figure out what. When he'd done that piece on security systems, he'd complied. A list of cardinal rules and something about Janice's system violated. Todd was sure one of those. What's the matter? Asked Janice as she locked the door behind them. I don't know, but you should get the security people over here to take a look at it. Sure. Squinting as the bright sun reflected off the snow, Todd hurried down the front walk to his Cherokee. As they climbed in his vehicle and he started it up, he realized he had one more question for Janice. This one of an entirely different nature, and one he needed to ask before he dropped her off at the gate times. Pulling into the street, Todd said, You know, there's something else I've been meaning to ask you. Such as, what blood type are you? My blood type? B. Oh, why? And then she understood. Wait a minute, this is about Zeb, isn't it? Of course. A Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold. To offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides. And in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.